Take a mental health break with the Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba and U Radio. Content warning. This episode deals with subjects of self-harm and sexual assault. Music is a powerful tool. A tool for self-expression and cultural celebration. A way to regulate our emotions and an opportunity to process our traumas. Stephanie Westdal, a world-traveled teacher and musician, has created and performed songs that have resonated with so many who felt they didn't have a voice to speak on what they have experienced. She joins me, Ryan Funk, and Rita Chahal of MDAM to talk about music and how it supports our mental wellness journeys. Welcome back to another episode of Mental Health Break. Today in the studio, we have a very special guest. We have Stephanie Westdal here with us. You've got a new single coming out that's really exciting. We'll definitely touch on that. But today, with Rita and the Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba, and along with Stephanie, we're going to want to explore the concept of music and how it relates to mental health. But before we jump into anything, Stephanie, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thanks for having me today. And Rita, wonderful to meet you. I'm looking forward to our chat. I'm a singer-songwriter in Winnipeg. I have been in the music business for 20 years. I'm a huge health and wellness advocate. And I support the artistic community here in Winnipeg. I have founded an event series, a national event series called the Goddess Series that supports women and female-identifying artists in the arts. And yeah, we have our next one is coming up in September.
Well, and we are just so delighted to have you as our guest on this show. It's always a pleasure to talk to folks who are really grounded in their wellness journey, like you are. And for us at Mood Disorders, we have a special program called MAD Camp. Now, MAD Camp stands for Music, Art, Dance, Drama. And music is a big part of that program. In the summertime, we have youth between the ages of 12 and 17 who come to our camp. It's a day camp right here in this building. And they look at creative ways in which they can manage their wellness journey. They come with all various diagnoses, and it's amazing how that creative way. A lot of them go the musical route, and at the end of it, somebody has written a song, or they've created a rock band, or they've choreographed an item to a particular song. Yeah. There's some really, really great talent, and the best part of it is that the kids stay connected, and they continue to get inspired by others, and we were looking hopefully that you'll come and visit our camp this summer.
I would love to. That would be my pleasure and my honor. That sounds wonderful because from my experience, by songwriting, one of the songs I wrote several years ago is called Bleed, and it's about self-harm. And I was not very comfortable personally talking about it at that time. So an easy way for me to therapeutically talk about it with a little bit of a buffer zone was to write about it. So I wrote a song called Bleed. And I also have a song called Lesser Than that is about sexual violence. So again, that's not something that I directly maybe wanted to introduce in a conversation, but when the song comes out, the number of personal messages I received back. Steph, we understand, we get it. I've had a similar experience. Thank you so much for putting it out there in this way.
And that is absolutely so critical. And I want to thank you, Steph, for doing this, because for the young people that we engage with, these are two common topics that do come up on a fairly regular basis. The self-harm is definitely one of them, because many of them are experiencing ups and downs, and suicide ideation is one of them.
We had a youth leader that came in a couple of weeks ago for a segment talking about some of the challenges that students her age and a little bit younger go through and experience, and self-harm was one of the topics that she brought up.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and violence in general. And you talk about the women's program that you have started.
Yes.
That's a huge issue in many communities. That we don't talk enough about it. It's still very much a taboo subject in many of the ethnocultural communities where many of the listeners on this channel are from those communities. And I think the message that we want to send out to people is. Don't be afraid to express yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to share it. Don't be afraid to report it to the authorities if that's the role that you can have to help them support someone.
Absolutely.
So when we have folks like you and other celebrities joining in the conversation about protecting one's wellness and about one's mental health, and we're all in good hands then.
Wonderful. Yeah. And speaking about a multicultural aspect of this, I lived overseas for 20 years. I was teaching in Cairo. I then moved to Jordan, lived in Turkey for 7 years. So I've had a lot of time to experience, observe, connect with these women in these different communities, and to get a better perspective culturally of what is appropriate in their culture versus other ones. It was an incredibly meaningful learning experience. And that is what I'm trying to show with the Goddess series.
I'm looking forward to learning more about the Goddess series, just on a personal note as well, because I've been involved with a lot of women's programming in my career. So, but tell us a little bit, if you can, whatever you're willing to share, about your wellness journey and how you decided that you would make it a bit more public and share your experience with us so that you can help others.
Great. Thank you. Yes. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to share my story. Today, I have, as I said, I speak with a therapist every couple of weeks. That's been critical to my ongoing well-being. But my journey started with, struggles in school. When I was in grade 12, I moved from London, England, back to Winnipeg. So that was a really, really hard shift for me. I had no friends. I was back in Winnipeg. I had just been living in England for 4 years, and it was a very jarring experience, and my life changed overnight. So that's, I think, when things sort of started to become really serious, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to. So I just sort of came up, I don't know, naturally just came up with some self-harm techniques to lessen my stress and try to deal with these challenges on my own. And again, at the time, it wasn't really something that was talked about. It was still, there was a lot of stigma around it. So I'm thrilled to be able to bring this to light today and talk about these things because they were extremely important. So, I was on medication too for depression and anxiety, with talk therapy as well. And just through working at it and getting the supports that I needed, and reaching out and to know when to reach out. That's another thing, right?
That's absolutely critical, is when you're ready for it, because that's when it's going to make a difference.
Exactly.
When you feel you have the strength. And I always strongly believe that asking for help is your greatest strength. That's when when you take that first step. I've had to take those first, and many others that I know who've had to take that first step. But that is the most difficult one. Once you do that, then you can get started.
Exactly. I reached out to a few friends at that time to say I was really struggling. They didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to do. I went to my family doctor. My family doctor suggested go talk to someone at the Health Sciences Center that specializes in this. And so I did, but each step was, are you sure I need? No, I'm fine. Oh, no, I'm fine. It's okay. I'll be fine. And then I just sort of realized I really need professional help. My friends can't help me with this. They can be there to support me and love me 100%. But I really need to have some tools to manage my emotions and what I'm going through.
Well, we always talk about this, the mental health continuum, the different tools, techniques, strategies that people use to find that balance in their life. And I think this is a great example.
This is a great example. You're right. You and I talk a lot about our mental wellness contingent. Sometimes we want to always stay in the mental wellness side of the linear process that we go. We have our good and bad days, and we have some worse days than others, but generally most of us do experience those various highs and lows. And how do we want to stay in wellness? And Ryan, you mentioned that there are lots of strategies. When I was going through a challenge myself, I had to find my own strategies. And how was I? And everyone is different, as you know. It's not a cookie cutter for anyone.
No.
So you have to take ownership of your own life. You have to take ownership of how you're going to use these tools. I mean, there's some of these common things. People talk about self-care, and I don't mean just bubble baths and candles,
which are still also important.
Yeah, and that we're not negating those. They're important. I have lots of candles in my room, and I have a jacuzzi too that once in a while that I may use. I think the things like eating well, exercise, asking for help, gratitude is such an important part of that wellness journey. The strategies, learning something new, going out for walk. During COVID, when all of us were stuck in our homes and we didn't quite know what to do, and that was when I was going through my challenge. That was the best garden I ever had that year, so engaging in those kinds of things. And it was, everyone's journey is different.
Yes.
If there was one thing, Stephanie, that you would you want to share with especially with young people, I would say.
Yes.
What message would that be?
Trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Know yourself. Reach out when you are feeling like you alone cannot manage the challenges you're facing. It's not always easy. It takes courage. It takes self-love to do it as well. So I would just say, trust yourself, trust your instincts. There are so many amazing resources, information out there. You're not the only one struggling. And one of the beautiful things about writing these songs are the messages I get back. It might not be in the comments, right? But it's amazing. They're like, thank you so much. This has helped me. I recognize my struggles in this. This has helped me move to the next chapter and maybe look into talking to a therapist.
Coming back to that music story, Rita, speaking of music, it ties to a lot of different aspects of mental health. Through your own journey, you told these stories, you shared those, I guess let's explore that, writing out the music, performing the music about these situations, whether it's, the song, what was it, Bleed, and then Not Enough, I think was the...
Lesser Than.
Yeah. Lesser Than. What sort of feelings or emotions or things, like, was it a cathartic experience writing there, or like, what was that?
Great question, because specifically the third word of the song Lesser Than is rape. And I thought, oh my gosh, do I say rape? Do I say, you took me in the sand, you raped me in the sand? How do I address this? And do I have enough courage to sing that on stage, depending on the audience, right? So I really found that there were two parts to it. There was the writing of it, three, I guess, the writing of it, the recording, and then the performance. Because the performance, I just recently in Saskatoon had the Goddess series performed there, myself included, for International Women's Day. And I did Lesser Than a cappella. I had no instruments, nothing. It was nerve-wracking in front of 200 people, yes. But I thought, you know what? I need to drive this message home so much on International Women's Day that I'm going to bring all the fearlessness I have and all the power I have and still be nervous, but I'm going to do it. And I started pounding my foot, right? Raped me in the sand. The audience started pounding back. They clapping. They were just right in time with me. They were right into it. They were absolutely with me on that journey. So much so that by the end of the song, I was like, oh, that was so powerful. That was so powerful. The room was alive with this message, and it was so important.
It's giving you chills.
You raped me in sand, holding my hand. Now you're in command. You took me by the palm tree, forced you and me with the sun sinking deep. So that like this, and then the chorus, and then there's a little French bit. Can I do the little French bit?
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Tu m'as violé, tu m'as râpé, et tu voulais que je suis moins que toi, t'as essayé de me... Mais je serai toujours moins que toi, je suis pas fragile, je suis fait d'acier. Et je serai toujours plus fort que toi.
Merci,
Yeah.
merci. That was beautiful.
Plaisir.
Thank you. I'm at a loss of words after that.
think
What you want to say?
first of all, very courageous. Even just putting the words to page, I think, is that first step, because how many people are so afraid that power that was taken from them that they feel that they can't even address it in silence.
Exactly. And so especially with Lesser Than, it was a 3-part thing I discussed with my manager. Should I use the word rape? Should I not use the word rape? I was very committed to the word, but then what is Spotify going to say? What's like, how's that going to go over for playlists and things like that? And I was like, this is a work of art in a body of work of art. So this is one piece in that body of work, and this deserves to be sung like this.
And I think that's a great example of those thoughts that were going through your head about, like, can I do this? It's those barriers, those censorships that we experience when we're looking at services like TikTok. A lot of people have to self-censor when they're talking about important topics over the fear of their message, of their platform being silenced.
Exactly. Exactly. And I faced the same thing with this one. And yet this song received the most personal attention of any song I've released.
Because a lot of people could identify with a similar experience,
Yes.
but never had the courage to talk about
Yeah,
it. And you were their voice. You were their voice.
I know.
Yeah.
And it was all genders.
Yeah,
It
and
was
like-
everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone had some kind of experience. It was extremely powerful. I'm very proud of this work.
Well, we're proud of all of the work you did. But I have one question. I had my moments. I've gone through some challenges, but I always found light at top of the tunnel. When was your moment of finding light at top of the tunnel, and how did you recognize that? Not light at the end of the tunnel, but light at top of the tunnel.
Yeah, top of the tunnel. I love that. I think I've had a few of those, but one of them that comes to mind immediately is feeling healthy, feeling stronger, having done a lot of work on myself. I got my teaching degree. I wanted to travel, and I applied for a job in Cairo to teach at an American school there. Well, we founded the American school, and it was that moment of, I'm not waiting for anyone to do this for me anymore. And in the back of my mind, I was always just waiting for somebody to come and take me traveling. Because as a child, I lived in Africa and England and stuff like that. So I was always kind of waiting for the partner to come and whisk me away. And I was like, you know what? That's never going to happen. You've been waiting like 8 years for this, Westdal. No, you're going to do it yourself. So that's when I did. People couldn't believe you're moving. Where? What? And I said, yes, I am. No, you aren't. I'm like, the movers came and off I went. And it was an incredibly empowering experience to trust myself. Yes, I was nervous. Yes, I wasn't sure. I did have a backup plan, all of those things, but to trust myself and just put myself out there. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. And I ended up staying in the Middle East and Africa for 10 years and then another 5 years in Europe.
Well, I think that's an example of, what people say is that courage isn't the absence of fear, but it is doing something despite the fear that you have.
Yes, I have a little mantra for myself. Fear and failure are not an option. I remind myself that when I am fearful, I just say, actually I have a thing written up and behind my bed. So every now and then I look at it and fear and failure are not an option. What you just described was such an incredible moment and such a powerful moment. I'll be starting a podcast soon with you, Multicultural channel.
Wonderful.
Called Light at Top of the Tunnel, and I'm hoping that you will be one of my guests.
I would be honored.
And you
I would
talk
love
about
that.
your moment of light at top of the tunnel. So I'm
Yes.
looking forward to that.
And now that I know you're doing that, Rita, now I'm going to start identifying those lights at the top of the tunnel, mountain.
Okay, we can have different versions of it.
When we're looking at music, one example was putting it to page, performing as a means of mental wellness, of catharsis. Why do you think, whether it's listening to music, those people hearing the messages, putting that music out there, creating it, why do you think music is such a powerful medium in expressing mental wellness or helping oneself through mental wellness?
I think that music is the great connector of all people on the planet. It's just a built-in part of who we are. So that's one part. And the other thing is you can use the music to address the emotion maybe more easily than you could if it was just in the written poetry form or prose or whatever. So you can have the big crescendos when it's getting really hard, and then the big moments when things are going well, and you get all the instruments together, and they get louder and louder, and you can feel it in your bones. You can feel that. So you have that dual, and then add dance to it, right?
Oh,
you add
wow.
dance to the whole thing. Yeah, some of the videos. So it's multi-platform, I guess, right? So you can really, really drive the message home in a variety of ways.
Yeah, it's a kind of a building block that can build upon these different avenues, these different aspects. For people, they could use it for pulling out those emotions that might be stuck. Maybe a thing or a song resonates with them, so they can finally acknowledge and speak truth to what their experiences are. It could also be a calming, grounding moment. People listen to music for studying or working, putting it in the background, all these elements. Not to say that all music is going to help you stay calm and level. Music goes and you're like, oh my God, stressed now. But, there are lots of music helps calm down. What do you think, Rita? Why is music such a powerful tool?
I've always, all my life, had a real belief that music is healing, right? So, I do listen to soft and sometimes energetic music, but there is a healing component to it. Way back in my academic years and when I was going through school or university, I have a background in science. I have a science degree, major in psychology, and a minor in music. Now that's a combination that most people can't figure that out. And it was because I always believed that music has a healing component. This was way, out of the box thinking at that time, because and I wrote a paper on it. What I did was I compared on the great philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Descartes, and talked on how they introduced and their thoughts on music as a healing way to heal mental health. And they all had different ways. But at one time, the churches did not allow any kind of singing. This is way centuries ago. In the churches, it was supposed to be very subdued. And then slowly the Gregorian chant came in, and choirs and organs and all. And it has made a difference. And a very personal experience for me, when one of the church services that I attended, this was maybe about 40-some years ago, when I was just learning about all this stuff. And in our church, they brought in guitars and singing. And I thought this was so blasphemous. I just couldn't handle that, because I thought organs and choirs were the way to go. But then my mother was much more open about it. She said, there's nothing wrong with it. And that slowly changed my view on thinking and how in today's world, in today's modern times, how even spiritual places are using music as a way to help people.
Well, I know a lot of in Indigenous teachings, this whole aspect of music as a healing thing. You know, in their a lot of their explanations of things, they would explain that as it's a type of medicine, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot like community, friendship, companionship, respect, music as a healing tool. You know, that's all types of medicine.
Yeah, I love that. And I keep coming to mind sound baths. I don't know if you've ever had a sound bath.
I've never. Tell us more about it.
I've experienced it a few times. It's a lie on the floor situation, and different toned ceramic or marble bowls. So you have the practitioner will just ding dong doo. So you do this for about an hour. It's incredibly meditative and very calming and soothing. I was actually thinking about hosting one of those because they are so.
We would love to.
Well, I would love to.
Yeah, and you know, I often, whenever I go to India, I always visit where His Holiness the Dalai Lama lives, his monastery, and there, when you go in, it's the same kind of sound. The monks are playing these very calming. So when you walk around the building, there's all these drums, and you just put your hand against it, and it is one of the most incredibly, I don't know what word to describe, but there's just something soulful about it, those kinds of sounds and the impact of that, and the impact of people chanting together in a very spiritual place. It's quite unique.
Very powerful.
And very, very powerful. It just, it grounds you, right? It just grounds you, it brings you down to where, and I think in some ways it connects you with whatever your belief system is, and to that inner part of yourself.
Well, there's so many theories about why, like, music, you know, rhythm, kind of vibrations, why that is something that we're so attuned to, whether that's just kind of those primal experiences connecting us back to, you know, the earliest of humankind. You know, as we're growing, we're communicating with each other, telling these stories through things. You know, there's other theories talking about how, you know, it's reminiscent of our time within the womb, of being in there, feeling the heartbeat, feeling the rhythm of the body. So these kind of put us back into those moments where we were, or we felt we were the most safe, the most calm.
And in many cultures, that is still very common, that, you know, the moms are, you know, they get to share beautiful music, so that because there's a belief that the child is actually hearing the music and the sounds and the vibrations that you say. So it's in many cultures. This is very much a part and parcel of that before you're even born.
So I just want to say something on that point, because that's exactly right. I have a daughter. She's 20 years old, but I was pregnant with her in Jordan, and I was teaching at the American school in Amman. And I was substitute teaching, so I would have band class. And I was pregnant. So when Jade, her name's Jade, would hear it, you know, the movement and the stuff, and then the soothing calming down once the band started playing. And it was an incredible experience for me as the mother too, to experience that with your unborn child.
And when the baby is born, sometimes you'll put on soft music, or the lullabies, or in their cribs. Can you imagine that? And we don't often we take these things for granted, but there's a science behind it. It helps soothe or mothers sing lullabies to their children, or when they're rocking them. These are all aspects that you and I take. We take. I don't mean you and I just personally, but in general, that we take for granted. But there is such important aspect to maintaining our wellness through music.
What do you think are some ways a person can apply music to their life to help in their long-term mental well-being? What's a sort of strategies you think someone could utilize to help themselves using music?
Wow, that's a great question. In terms of, like, for me, musical tastes have changed over the years, and I embrace that. I like to listen to a lot of new stuff that puts me in a fresher mindset than some of the older music that might bring up heavy memories, things like that. I am actually working through that now. But there was a time where I just couldn't listen to grunge because my best friend died in a motorcycle accident, and I love grunge. So I've now little by little started performing it, and it's been incredibly healing. But I couldn't have done it 15 years ago. It wouldn't have worked. I would just cry. So now I think I've lost the thread of the question.
Oh, just like what, that's one way, for yourself, you're finding new tastes in music, and you're going back to them. And the question was, what are some ways people can utilize music as a strategy in their long-term well-being?
I think Rita pointed out a lot of interesting things, just the soothing music for calm, relaxed, healing times, and also the more energetic stuff for times of celebration. And that's really important to identify too. I think today we are so quick to accomplish something and then look quickly for the next thing. What's the next thing? Well, what about that accomplishment? And that it's important to be in that moment and celebrate.
When I'm doing house cleaning, I'll put on nice music that I can move to, that gives me energy, so that I don't feel so. And if I would put on very soft, soothing, then it'll sort of slow me down. So it's whatever you're hoping to get out of this is how I use. Like for night, if I listen to something at night, I want something to be able to help me go to sleep in a more positive way, and maybe a morning would be and then in Indian culture. There is the whole ragas, certain tunes, or I'm not a subject matter expert on music, Indian music, but there's certain things that should be sung in the mornings. Some are mid-afternoon, some are afternoon, some are evening. There are all these different times of the day when the music is supposed to be appropriate. And these are all, written and performed by professionals or people who learn music in a serious way. My mom, for example, she will sing her morning ones, and that brings her into a nice, soothing, gets her day off started. In all different cultures, they have different ways in how music heals and how it helps. Not just heals, but how it helps.
That's like ceremonial drums at the beginning of like land acknowledgements and discussions at places. Like it creates the space to begin those conversations, to get into that mindset, to help with our spirits and the spirits around us, to create that positive atmosphere to make change.
And celebrations in different communities, whether it's a wedding or a birth or some other form of celebration, the music is adapted to what the moment is.
Yes.
We look at a wedding when a bride enters the space of a particular where the wedding venue is and where the ceremony is going to take. There's very specific music attached to that in many places. So
how this can tie into the whole thing with like medium and like leitmotifs in movies and all that, but that's a different conversation for a different time.
Like I hear a lot of honoring yourself and what you're feeling at the time, and sometimes it's hard to identify what you're feeling. Back to mental wellness, I found it challenging. Like what's going to help support me the most right now, so what kind of music? And there's some music that just lights up my nervous system in a very bad way that I just can't. I'm like, this is
and it can be triggering, right?
Yes,
because as you said earlier, some of the things that it brings a memory. I've had those experiences where I listen to a song where it brings on a memory. I don't want to listen to it right now. I'll move on to something else. I'll switch it to the radio or switch to, whatever form I'm listening to. Yeah. But it's both. So you have, again, like anything else in our lives, we have to be selective. We have to be careful. We have to make sure that it serves the purpose that what we are intending it to do.
Well, Stephanie, we really appreciate you coming on down, having this conversation. But before you go, I know you have some exciting news, a new single coming out. Why don't you share that with us, as well as where can people go to hear more about your music, to engage in these kind of catharsis together as community?
I love that. Thanks. Thank you, Ryan. So I have a new single that actually was just released that last week called On the Video. This song is about about betrayal and how do you, once you've been betrayed, is that repairable? Is it not? Is it okay for it not to be? Does the relationship morph into something different, or do you just let it go? So it's sort of all of those, exploring those kinds of questions. And you can find more about me on my website, the Stephanie Westdal Band, or just Stephanie Westdal. Same thing on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel as well.
Well, we're delighted to have you in this conversation. And we're going to come back again, aren't we? Because I just love talking about this topic, and I'm looking forward to having you visit with our campers this summer, give them some inspiration, and we'll continue this conversation, Ryan. And thank you for addressing this topic. I think it's really, we were able to hone down instead of just general arts, right?
Of course.
And to have a celebrity amongst us. So thank you for your time and sharing with us.
Thank you, Rita. This has been amazing. I would love to continue this conversation.
Thank you for taking a mental health break with the Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba and U Radio. I'm Ryan Funk, and take care.